Have you ever thought gossip was harmless? Imagine a colleague crushed by the entire organization over rumors that she abandoned her autistic son, when in fact, she was the one who saved you from abuse. Behind closed office doors lay a sinister plot: domestic violence, malicious defamation, and twisted justice. Today you'll hear how I, a curious bystander, and Sarah, a courageous mother, uncovered the truth and executed a public takedown that rocked the system. Brace yourself for a true Reddit story filled with tears, outrage, and unforgettable climaxes. Chapter 1: Introduction and Context. I remember the first day I saw Sarah return to the clinic after 3 months of unpaid leave. Every glance blurred as she walked in, as if the very air had been tainted by the whispers trailing behind her. I had only been with the pediatric therapy department for 2 weeks, but Sarah's reputation as the mother who abandoned her child had spread so quickly that my colleagues froze mid-sentence. Typical midlife crisis nonsense. Jaime, the lead physical therapist, barked across the room, her tone low enough that even the Florida team could hear. She deliberately chose the word abandoned to leave a wound, and I felt a chill run down my spine. During the morning meeting, Diana, the manager, stood lecturing on professional commitment. In a steely voice, her eyes fixed on Sarah as if sparks might fly. Sarah sat silently, arms crossed, saying nothing, as though trapped in a glass box of judgment. At lunch, Jaime pulled me aside in the kitchenette, her voice quiet but hard. "Don't you dare get friendly with her. She ditched her 16-year-old autistic son and her husband. Disappeared without a word 2 months ago. Setting morality aside, what kind of mother does that?" I couldn't stay silent. Rumors from my own past, false accusations that haunted me 5 years ago, were still fresh in my mind. I understood what it was like to have every coworker turn and stare at you as if you were guilty, without anyone ever asking why. I longed at least once to get my truthful version across. From that day on, I watched Sarah more closely. She never complained, never bragged about her leave. Every morning, she greeted the children with a gentle smile. I noticed her patience was almost uncanny, especially with a nonverbal little boy who had bitten 3 other therapists. With Sarah, he was as gentle as a lamb. Softly she would say, "You're safe now. I'm here, breathe with me," as she stroked his wrist to calm him. Every lunch break, Sarah brought out homemade sensory tools, sometimes a piece of silky cloth, other times a weighted ball, to help restless children settle. And every evening she stayed late, typing up detailed notes for parents, sketching out home practice diagrams. But no one ever said thank you. They all looked the other way, and I knew that look was meant to hide disgust mixed with doubt. I couldn't fathom how they could shun someone so dedicated over unverified rumors. And the more I saw Sarah's quiet devotion, the angrier I became. I too had once wished someone would see my side of the story, and now I decided I would do it for her. I would listen to Sarah, the real Sarah, before the vultures of gossip took flight. What I'd observed in these 2 weeks was only the overture. Sarah's story, I knew, was just beginning. Chapter 2: A Life Defamed. Ever since I decided to keep an eye on Sarah, I noticed every glance and whisper in the office. Each morning her lunch in the fridge would vanish before I could even ask, "What are you having today?" And by the end of the day, she'd sneak out carrying an empty meal bag, her eyes dull, as if all her energy had been drained. Everyone fell silent when she entered the break room. I even saw Julia, the young assistant, secretly delete meeting invites from Sarah's inbox, claiming she was overloaded. No one wanted to be involved. I remember the first time I witnessed Diana assigning Sarah all the difficult cases: the 4-year-old with self-harming tics, the 7-year-old who scratched former patients, the kid who'd erupt into violence for no reason. Most people steered clear, so Sarah quietly accepted them all. Watching her kneel to adjust the safety straps on that screaming little boy, my heart ached. Someone like her deserved care, not to be dumped into a pile of misery. What kind of worker protection is this that everyone treats her like a ship, Dodging a storm, I wondered, until the day Marcus Coleman snapped. Marcus was a severe ADHD case who frequently acted out. That day, he was hurling a heavy ball around the room and shrieking nonstop while his father, a hulking man reeking of alcohol, stood by as if proud. When he grabbed Marcus by the collar and yanked him up, I screamed hoarsely, "What do you think you're doing?" Before I could intervene, he spun and slammed me against the wall. His arm squeezed so hard I felt pain radiate from my sternum. A few spat droplets hit my cheek as he cursed, "You frauds! The more you treat him, the worse he gets." I couldn't breathe or cry out. Everything blurred until a cold, commanding voice cut through, "Let her go. Now." Sarah appeared like a whirlwind. One hand landed on his arm, the other shielding me. "You're hurting your son," she said softly but firmly. "Step back, or I'll call CPS right now." He froze. Marcus clung to her leg, sobbing. Sarah bent down to examine the bruise on his arm, never taking her eyes off his father. At last the man stomped away, muttering about lawsuits and crazy people. I was trembling, but not from fear. From something else. Gratitude. "Thank you," I choked out. She just squeezed my hand and closed her eyes, exhaling. "We have to save each other," she whispered. I thought colleagues would pat me on the back, or at least Diana would invite me for coffee to make amends. But no. That afternoon, I was summoned to Diana's office. She stared at me like I was the culprit. "Mr. Coleman complained you caused a disturbance with Marcus and disrupted clinic order. You intervened without authorization. We cannot accept this." "She saved me," I interjected. "And she saved Marcus." Diana sneered. "Are you sure you're not letting personal feelings cloud your judgment? A mother who abandoned her family is hardly balanced." She ordered both of us to cease any unauthorized actions and placed Sarah under internal review. I left the office and spotted her in a distant corner, eyes glistening. That evening, she never returned to the break room. When I found her, she was sitting on the outdoor steps, clutching a pillow, trembling. She sighed, "I used to be a mother. I just wanted to protect my child." I sat beside her and said gently, "Now let me protect you." The street lamp cast long shadows before us. That night, amid the downpour of rumors, I knew I could no longer stand by. Sarah was not alone, and our story, I sensed, was only just beginning. Chapter 3: The Horrifying Truth of Sarah's Life. From that night on, my determination to uncover the secret behind Sarah's gentle facade only grew stronger. I began scouring for every clue: surreptitious photos, old emails, messages from the night she vanished. Then one day, I stumbled upon a photo collage on her phone, winding burn scars along her wrists and forearms. The next midday, when everyone was distracted by the latest office gossip, I led Sarah into a private corner between two therapy rooms. Her face went ashen. "You saw them," she whispered. I nodded, my hand trembling as I pointed to the image on the screen. Her voice constricted as she told me her husband, an ex-military officer, never hesitated to wield his authority and physical strength to control her. Every time she called 911, Aiden, her autistic son, would scream, "Mom's gone crazy," prompting the police to note mother delusional, temporarily unfit for childcare. He even fabricated claims of her postpartum depression to twist the narrative in his favor. He coaxed Aiden into rehearsing a false testimony, saying his mother beat him because she couldn't handle his meltdowns. The boy memorized it verbatim, and the husband filmed a staged rescue of his son, uploading the clip online as irrefutable proof. The entire community, even our colleagues, bought it hook, line, and sinker. Tears blazing, Sarah gripped my shoulder. I had to leave to save both our lives, but I couldn't leave Aiden with him. I knew he'd beat me nearly to death if I didn't play the crazy mother. I realized then that those scars were more than marks. They were indisputable evidence of calculated abuse. She had leveraged her professional notes and every doctor's appointment as cover to stifle her cries for help. That night, I quietly printed dozens of pages of her messages, photos and emails, each a desperate plea for rescue. Each sheet was a ticking clock, counting down to the day Sarah was crushed beneath a mountain of lies. I knew I faced a choice: expose the truth and see if our colleagues would dare believe that the abandoning mother was actually an abuse survivor, or remain silent and let her isolation mask the depth of her suffering. I took a deep breath and looked Sarah in the eye. Leave this to me. We'll unmask him, expose Diana, and show the world you are no monster. And so we began to plan meticulously and methodically our sweetest form of vindication for all the wounds she'd endured. That night, I went home with my heart pounding. The battle had truly begun. Had truly begun. Chapter 4: The Unforeseen Counterattack. I began by creating a hidden folder on the clinic's internal network, gathering every file message, medical invoice, scar photograph, and even the old rescue tape Sarah's husband had recorded. Each piece of evidence was arranged chronologically, with clear annotations to expose his manipulative scheme. One afternoon, I invited Diana into the conference room, purportedly to review the clinic's treatment protocols. When she opened her laptop, I pretended to forget the password and slowly swiped through the files: the video of Aiden trembling and clutching his mother's leg, Sarah's frantic email to her doctor, photographs of fresh bruises on her skin. Within seconds, I saw tears welling in Diana's eyes. "Care to explain this?" I asked softly. Diana looked up, stammering, "That's not our concern." I let out a low laugh. "Oh, but it is. We demand safety for our patients, don't we?" She glanced at the door, then broke down. "If word gets out, the whole clinic will collapse." I replied calmly, "Exactly. I'll send everything to the board of directors, the Child Protection Committee, and if necessary, the press." Diana's expression shifted from fear to anger, and finally resignation. She realized there was no denying the truth. That very evening, Sarah and I uploaded the entire dossier to the management's secure email with the subject line, "Evidence of Domestic Abuse and Workplace Cover-Up." By the next morning, the executive board was in turmoil. The clinic's leadership convened an emergency meeting with their attorneys. Jaime and the others who had mocked Sarah suddenly fell silent, their faces clouded with anxiety. The clinic faced the threat of license suspension. Its entire operation would crumble without a transparent investigation. Diana was suspended, pending a formal hearing. Jamie, as team lead, was ordered to answer for spreading malicious rumors. Amid the chaos, I spotted Sarah, her face pale, but her gaze steady, no longer that of a terrified mother. She offered me a gentle smile. "Thank you for risking everything." In that moment, I understood our counterattack not only freed Sarah, but forced the entire community, from coworkers to executives, to confront their actions. Most importantly, Sarah had reclaimed her honor and her right to be loved as a true mother. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, we held the initiative. Sarah was no longer cast into the shadows, and I believed that no matter how dark it gets, truth and courage will always illuminate justice. Chapter 5: The Price to Pay. After our counterattack that shook the clinic's foundations, I believed Sarah and I would be safe at least for a while. But that very night, a screenshot of our expose email went live on the internal network under the headline, "The Secretary and Her Partner, a Plot to Destroy a Colleague." Within minutes, an emergency suspension notice appeared on the staff bulletin. Both Sarah and I were placed on leave pending investigation. I passed through the break room, chills running down my spine at the whispers. The woman who rescued her kid has now abandoned us. When I opened my lunch bag, a container of yogurt was missing, even though I had just bought it. Sarah caught me in the hallway. "They're accusing our evidence of being fake. They say the video was doctored." I pulled her into my arms. "Don't worry. We still have the original files for comparison." But when I returned to my desk, my laptop was locked, and all our evidence files were suddenly inaccessible. Medical invoices, scar photos, plea for help emails, everything was out of reach. Diana Jaime and the management team invoked their highest authority to strip us of access, demanding proof of data authenticity. Sarah lowered her head, shaking as she lifted a water glass to her lips. They're cutting off every source, making me look insane. I nodded. They'll be humiliated if the originals surface, but right now, we need to recover those files. The next day, I slipped into the CCTV archive room to copy the raw footage before it disappeared too. Every security channel demanded Diana's password. I waited for the cameras to blink off, then slipped inside, took a deep breath, and slammed the door shut. Those 2 hours holed up in the dark felt like the longest of my life. When my portable drive finally displayed copy complete, a surge of adrenaline pulsed through me, proof to keep fighting. Yet by the weekend, Sarah received a crushing call her husband had filed for an emergency divorce after discovering old messages she'd sent a friend, messages that said, "I'm so exhausted." The court deemed her absence as abandonment, and his request for unsupervised visitation was granted. I shattered when I heard the news. Sarah's first tears in weeks streamed not from pain, but from guilt. She blamed herself. If I hadn't struck back so soon, at least my son would still see his mother. I held her hand. We're fighting not just for our careers or reputations, but for Aiden. I won't let your son lose his mother again. Now we both stood at the edge of an abyss. Facebook, emails, the courts, our clinic all had turned against us. Only our unwavering resolve kept us from falling. Chapter 5 closes with Sarah's late-night text to me, "We must charge forward. No turning back." And I knew then that the path ahead would be more brutal than anything we'd faced so far. Chapter 6, Strategy and Evidence. I woke before dawn, my mind still reeling from our lockdown in the records room. One slip-up and all our efforts would be for nothing. I arranged to meet Sarah at the roadside cafe where we first plotted our plan and brought along the external hard drive I'd just copied. She sat there nursing a steaming cup of tea, eyes tired yet sharp. "We need more than the video," she said. "There must be medical records, doctors' emails, and that 911 call log." I nodded and handed her her fingerprint-locked phone. "I've copied the hospital intake form, the ambulance ride invoices, and the officer's recording when he asked, 'Is the parent stable?'" We divided our tasks. Sarah would contact her pediatrician and secure a signed statement confirming she'd gone to the ER for physical injuries. I would visit her former clinic to retrieve the original prescription logs. Every meeting was logged, date, time, attendees, and phone numbers. By midweek, Sarah's only remaining friend, Mia, an elementary school teacher, agreed to testify. Mia had sheltered Aiden as a child and witnessed him clinging to his mother's leg in the kitchen when his father threatened to squeeze him. Mia provided a signed written affidavit. That was golden evidence coming from the victim herself. Over the weekend, I even tracked down the bank where Sarah's husband had withdrawn funds for legal fees and obtained statements showing 2 large withdrawals the day she called 911. The line $5,000, attorney's fee, was stamped in bold on the statement, proving he'd rushed to file suit immediately after she fled. All night, I reviewed every piece of evidence: the original video medical charts, bank statements, hospital intake, doctor's emails, Mia's affidavit, and the ambulance receipts. Side by side, these fragments, once shattered, formed a complete picture. On Monday morning, I took everything to an independent attorney. He agreed to advise pro bono because this story is compelling. We assessed the legal grounds, domestic abuse evidence, wrist scars, plus Mia's affidavit, plus medical reports, legal manipulation evidence, bank statements, plus CPS threatening emails, workplace defamation evidence, internal messages, plus hidden camera footage. The lawyer advised we needed a formal complaint signed by Sarah to file with the health authority and the parents' commission. Sarah's hand trembled as she signed the affidavit. She looked at me and asked, "Do we really stand a chance?" I placed my hand over the notarized document. "The odds may be slim, but if we don't try, I'm afraid." Back at the clinic, I slipped through old archives to locate Sarah's original employment contract, proving she did not resign voluntarily, but was effectively forced out. I carefully labeled each photocopy, photographed them, and emailed them securely to our attorney. By Wednesday night, as Sarah nodded off at her desk, I gently woke her. I've retrieved an internal memo Diana proposed expelling her right before spreading the abandonment rumor. We dug into her spam folder and found the message from Diana to Jaime. That abandoning mother needs to be removed ASAP. It was irrefutable evidence of a coordinated smear campaign. With this trove of proof, we could prepare both a custody hearing and a defamation lawsuit against the clinic. Everything was within our grasp, but we understood our opponents would strike back fiercely. They had an entire system, lawyers, insurance, political connections to fight us. I took a deep breath and allowed myself a small smile. You've been patient for years. Now it's my turn to fight for you. Sarah looked at me, her eyes glistening red. Thank you. You're my only ally. In the hush of the night, I knew this was not the end. It was the silent build-up before the next explosive showdown. And this time, I would never let her face it alone. Chapter 7, The High-Stakes Trial. On the morning of the first hearing, I wore a simple yet polished suit. Sarah sat beside me, her hands trembling as she clutched her file. The courtroom lights felt harsher than anything I had ever experienced. Our attorney rose and addressed the bench. Your Honor, this isn't merely a custody dispute. It's incontrovertible evidence of a pattern of covert domestic abuse and malicious workplace defamation. He projected the original video the moment Sarah tore me free from Mr. Coleman's grip. There were no edit cuts or added screams, only her commanding voice slicing through the night. Let her go. The gallery fell silent, and I could feel the judge's eyes fixed, rapt with attention. Next, Mia, the elementary teacher, took the stand. Her clear, unwavering testimony described how Marcus clung to his mother's leg in terror. As she spoke, we passed around medical reports, scar photographs, and the 911 call log, weaving together an unassailable narrative. Then came Sarah's husband. He sat calmly and claimed, I was only protecting my son. When the judge asked him about the footage he recorded, opposing counsel challenged him. Why did you delete the earlier segment and only show the rescue? He stammered, his face draining of color. In that instant, the prosecution had found its first crack. Our lawyer then summoned Diana and Jaime. Each had to explain their roles in circulating the internal rumors that amplified Sarah's suffering. Jaime hung her head while Diana protested that Sarah had disrupted clinic order. The judge rapped his gavel. The court will subpoena the original emails and the minutes from the internal meetings. The most poignant moment came when Aiden was brought into the courtroom via video link. He sat, curled in his grandmother's arms, eyes wide but downcast toward the camera. When asked, "Are you afraid of your mother?" Aiden's soft reply, "I'm afraid when she's not home," echoed through the hall. A sniffle rippled among the attendees. The judge turned to Sarah's husband and stated, "The court notes the paramount importance of this child's psychological welfare. Parental conflict directly affects the child's best interests. By day's end, the provisional ruling granted Sarah primary custody. Her husband's visitation would be supervised. The clinic was ordered to lift all disciplinary actions against her and launch an internal inquiry into Diana's conduct. As we emerged from the courthouse, I saw Sarah's lips trembling as she whispered, "Finally." Tears welled in her eyes and she embraced me. "Thank you for believing in us." The blare of a siren outside seemed to beat in time with our racing hearts. Though this decision was temporary, it marked our first victory in a long struggle. We had shown the world that no matter how deeply it's buried the truth, and those brave enough to speak, it will always find a way to prevail. Chapter 8, Aftermath and Recovery. The trial concluded and the rain outside still fell softly. Sarah emerged holding Aiden's hand. He gripped hers tightly, and walked with his head held higher than ever before. The doubtful glances from passersby no longer carried the same weight. The provisional custody ruling in Sarah's favor was widely publicized, accompanied by strict supervision orders for her husband. In my heart, this wasn't just a victory for them, but a declaration that covert abuse cannot withstand the power of truth. The next morning, the clinic issued its own announcement. Diana was suspended from management, and Jaime was required to complete an ethics remediation course. Those who once whispered and slipped out of meetings now passed Sarah with downcast eyes. She didn't smirk. She simply lifted her son's chin and whispered, "We did the right thing." In the weeks that followed, Sarah found temporary housing at a domestic violence shelter. I took 3 weeks off to help her sort paperwork, enroll Aiden in his new school, and piece her life back together. In the evenings, we sat side by side, mapping out his physical therapy exercises, interspersed with moments of quiet compassion, each tear a release of past pain, each smile a small sign of hope. As for me, after 3 years at the clinic, my own path shifted. The old facility came under external review, and I was invited to join a nonprofit dedicated to supporting survivors. The salary was lower, but I no longer woke up dreading the day. I drafted my first memo there, typing, "I am a former pediatric therapist now committed to safeguarding the rights of people like Sarah." The world remained divided. Some continued to defend the father, insisting Sarah had issues, while others hailed her as an everyday hero. But for us, the most important measure was simple. Aiden woke up each morning with a smile, and Sarah began to rebuild her dream of motherhood. We could not erase the past, but we learned to transform its wounds into strength. Each day, Sarah raised her son with love rather than fear. I shared my experience with other survivors, planting seeds of hope amid the rubble. And that is how we moved forward, our scars still visible, but our courage etched deeper than ever before. Chapter 9, Rebuilding Life. That summer, Florida's sky was the clearest shade of blue, as if the storm that nearly destroyed our lives had never happened. Sarah found a small apartment overlooking a park where Aiden could run and play to his heart's content. Sometimes he'd pause at the door, shyly checking that his mother was still there, then break into a pure, joyful laugh as he flung himself into her arms. Watching them, my heart swelled at last. This little family had found its warmth again. As for me, after a month working at the Survivors Center, I'd grown accustomed to sharing our story with strangers. In every report and workshop, I used my experience with Sarah to help others recognize the signs of covert abuse. My former colleagues found it surprising, but none faulted me when they saw the results. Some survivors reclaimed their voices, and a few families avoided further tragedy. One day I received an email from the pediatrician who had once hidden Sarah's records. "Thank you for watching closely and exposing everything. Without you, who knows how much longer she would have suffered," I smiled and replied with a simple thank you. On social media, the hashtag Justice for Sarah spread like wildfire. Parents requested meetings with her to learn how to listen to their children and protect themselves from abuse. Those who once turned away now bowed their heads in apology. Even the old clinic leadership invited her back to train staff. Sarah declined. All she wanted was peace for her son. But life wasn't all rosy. Aiden still startled at the sound of the door and clutched his toys in fright. I told Sarah, "Your son needs time." She merely smiled, pulling Aiden close. "We have our whole lives ahead." As for me, I realized how profoundly I'd changed from a timid girl, fearful of gossip, into someone unafraid to step into the light, to show her scars, and to endure whispered judgments if it meant protecting a mother and child. My former colleagues, though not all convinced, at least fell silent when they saw me. I understood that scars cannot be erased, but courage can turn those wounds into badges of honor. Chapter 9 closes on the three of us, Sarah, Aiden, and me strolling through the park in the golden afternoon light. Sarah turned to me, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you for never abandoning us." I gently nodded. Life goes on, and we deserve every bit of this peace. Chapter 10. Conclusion and Message. More than a year has passed since I chose not to abandon Sarah, yet I still recall the moment I stood before the court, my heart brimming with faith in justice. Now watching Sarah stride forward, as a strong single mother, I've come to realize that victory isn't found in rulings or paperwork. It's in the peaceful mornings when Aiden wakes and races into his mother's arms without a trace of fear. I left my role as a physical therapist to join a foundation supporting survivors of abuse. The pay is lower and the challenge is greater, but every call I take and every home I visit reignites hope. And when someone asks me why, I remember Sarah's words, "You protected us. Now I protect hundreds of women just like her." Some say I'm dangerous for getting so deeply involved. Others call me a hero for daring to stand up. But I know that courage isn't charging onto a battlefield. It's facing the truth head on, even when it brings suspicion, criticism, or cost. Sarah and I still share a special bond. Whenever Aiden makes another breakthrough, from painting and reading to flashing that confident smile, Sarah calls me first, as if to say, "You did the right thing." And to you, if you've ever heard someone cast aside or witnessed an abuser hiding behind a facade of respectability, remember this one voice may not change the entire world, but it can save a life. Courage is lighting a small candle in the darkness, and I believe that when enough of those candles burn together, they can illuminate the path for every mother and child who's lost their way. That was the journey of a mother once labeled a moral disaster to reclaim her friendship and bond with her son. So many truths were hidden and so many rumors laid bare. If there's one thing you take from this story, remember, don't believe gossip until you hear the story straight from the person involved. Speaking the truth may cost you your reputation, but silence can be far more cruel. Every time you speak up is a decisive strike against hidden injustice. If you feel stronger after watching this video, please like, subscribe, and share it with anyone silently suffering. See you in the next true Reddit story, where justice always gets a chance.